Hi, I'm Doug from 10 Minute Amiga Retrocast, and welcome to another episode of the ChickenHead Chronicles. This one all about the game Telengard, and a version of it for our precious VIC-20. Now this is my third ChickenHead Chronicles video in a row, which is pretty uncommon for me, but I realized I hadn't done one in months, and I really got the 8-bit bug after I got my PET CBM 8032, so I've honestly been spending a lot of time with my 8-bits. But don't worry, Amiga stuff will be back next week, maybe. Now Telengard was my favorite game on my Commodore 64 back in the mid-80s. Absolutely loved it. I was an advanced D&D nut back then, did a lot of role-playing, and this scratched that itch for sure. It was created by Daniel Lawrence on a PET in 8K, Commodore PET in 8K. Sadly, Daniel has since passed away. I'm sorry to hear about that. In the early 80s, all of the rights for Telengard were picked up by Avalon Hill, who then had it released for the Apple II, the Atari 8-bits, and eventually the Commodore 64. But first, let's talk a little bit about the game itself, and let's look at it on its original machine, the PET. Now, just like in AD&D, you start out with a set of statistics: strength, intelligence, wisdom, constitution, dexterity, charisma. They're figured out by rolling a 3 6-sided dice, and you can look at all of these different characters and all of these different rolls until you find one that really looks good to you. So we'll just take a look and we'll get one that's, it's hard to find one that's average. That's pretty good right there. The name, 10 mark, why not? You are now descending into the depths of the Telengard dungeon. Beware. Now, these stats are more than just numbers, and they have a lot to do with what's going on in the game. How hard you hit, how effective your magic is, how much monsters like you, how you can dodge attacks, things like that. You're going to want a high constitution and high dexterity for taking damage and dodging combat. So we've given our character a name, and here he's encountered a level 3 dwarf. Let's go ahead and cast a spell at the dwarf. We're going to cast the level 1 spells. That's all we have. We're going to hit the equal sign to see. We're going to put him to sleep. Dwarf is sleeping. Ha ha ha! 330 experience points. Now let's go back up. Once you create a character, immediately save him. On the Commodore 64 and on the VIC-20, as you'll see in a few minutes, you can save him to disk. On the PET, right now, I can only save him to tape. Go ahead and hit the home key or whatever key on the Commodore 64 and save him to disk, because they will die. Telengard is a very, very unforgiving game. So you may be wandering around and you may take 2 steps in some direction, and suddenly you find yourself with a level 5 dragon, and well, you can't do too much against him. We're going to fight a troll here. Oh my goodness, 2 in a row. Now you see my spell units are drained, so I'm going to go back up. Oh, found some silver worth 321 gold. Fantastic. As you move around in the dungeons, it automatically redraws the dungeons. This is not a randomly designed dungeon. All 50 levels of Telengard are predetermined and the same in every game. But there are 50 levels, and there's like 1,000,000+ separate locations in Telengard, which is pretty amazing considering it's on an old 8-bit computer. Here I am exploring. Everything is in real time. So if I just stand still, it's not like nothing's going to happen. After 5 seconds, I'm automatically going to stay, and the random encounter is going to kick back in, and I may just have a random encounter with a Minotaur here, level 3 Minotaur. Oh my goodness, this guy's actually surviving. This is amazing. Again, I've only got 1 spell unit at level 1 here, so I'm going to go back up and rest and get my spells back. Ring of Regeneration +2. Now, being that everything is a random encounter in Telengard, if you just stay in one place, random encounters will just pop up. So if you sit there for like 60 seconds, every 5 seconds it re-rolls random encounters, and you might have a magic suit of +5 armor just appear where you were standing and there was nothing there a minute ago. Now, it's not realistic, but this is a grinding type of game, like something like Diablo. So you get used to it, and it's a lot of fun. There is no pausing the game unless you go up here to like the inn where I'm perfectly safe. And if you wait too long to grab an item, you could lose it. So if you find a +99 sword and you're off thinking about something else and you don't hit the enter key to pick it up, you'll lose it. Leave it behind. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, as you can see, I could either fight with my swords when I meet up with these monsters, or I can cast spells, which are kind of useful, and you gain more spell units as time goes on. Here, I've ignored those jewels because I was busy talking to you guys, and I lost those jewels forever. Spells are great because you have things like light spells, detect trap spells, teleportation spells, lots of different things that you can use in the future as your character grows in strength. Sometimes when you encounter a monster, now let's go ahead and cast a turn undead spell on this guy. That's number 5, turn undead. He runs in fear. Sometimes these monsters actually like you and they give you things. So you may run into a level 19 dragon and suddenly think, you know, oh my goodness, he's gonna kill me. And then it says, the dragon likes you. He gives you a sword +5. Oh, cool. That's awesome. I'll take it. Also, sometimes characters will steal from you. Killed an elf. So a hobbit may come up to you, and it says, the hobbit makes a quick move. He steals your ring of regeneration +2. Oh my goodness, that is so frustrating. And when you just find a cool magic item and then some little punk comes up and steals it, oh, you just want to wring his little neck. But there's nothing you can do. It's the randomness of a game like this. Now you can see the graphics on the PET version are very rudimentary. We've got a couple little pet ski graphics for the walls. We have an X that represents our character. We have a hashtag that represents the monsters, $sign that recommends represents the money. Fight. Oops, and there I died. But in a game like this, it's not all about the graphics. A lot of it is about your imagination, just like it is when you actually play the Dungeons & Dragons role-playing game. Most of this stuff, as you play through here, you'll find it's actually going on in your head, which is kind of cool. Now, the C64 version has graphics for everything, so let's take a quick look at that. Now, on the C64 version, just about everything has a cool graphic representation. So monsters look like monster, treasures look like treasure, the features that you find look like features. It also adds sound effects for many special events in the game, which does add to the fun and doesn't take away from anything. Now, these graphics are not award-winning for sure. This is early to mid-'80s stuff. And the pacing of the game is pretty slow. But remember, this is pretty much coded in 100% basic. And you can actually get out of the program and see the basic listing and make changes to the program before you run it if you want to. So instead of saying finding a level 20 demon, you can find a level 20 Amiga Bill in there if you want to change it to say Amiga Bill. So the goal of Telengard is to see how powerful you can become and how deep into the dungeons you can go. You level up your character by gaining experience points received by killing monsters and collecting treasure. Each level of monster of the 20 types is more powerful and does more damage, and they get higher level the deeper you go into the dungeon. Gold and other treasure adds to your experience, but only if you trudge it back up to level 1. Find one of the many inns and spend the night. Believe me, when you're on level 5 down in the dungeons and are totally lost and suddenly find 35,000 gold pieces, it becomes an entire adventure trying to find stairways, elevators, or transporting gray misty cubes to get back to an inn before you run into a level 19 demon who slaughters you. Now, during your adventures, you will come across various features in the dungeon. You've seen me run across a few here. Stairways lead up or down. Pits, you might fall into them, or you can climb down them depending on your dexterity. Magic fountains to drink from, which sometimes heal you, sometimes make you drunk, and sometimes dispossess you and strip you of every single magic item you own. Believe me, when you lose your plus 20 sword, armor plus 14, ring of regeneration plus 9, when you're 12 levels deep in the dungeon, you really want to tear your hair out. Now, you may also find this awesome location in the dungeon with perfect locations of stairways to go up and down levels and to get back to an inn, to find more loot, cool dungeon features to exploit, and then suddenly you're exploring and walk into a teleporter and zap, takes you a totally different part of the dungeon you've never been to before, and that makes mapping the dungeons really, really hard. Now, one of my favorite dungeon features is the Gem-Encrusted Throne. As the cool, awesome manual states, a valuable relic from a long-expired kingdom squirreled away by a dungeon beast. Now, the throne allows you to try and pry off the stones, sit in the throne itself, or read the runes on the throne. Prying off the jewels, it may do nothing. It might summon a monster, or they pop off into your greedy hands and you get rich prying off the stones. Reading the runes might raise an attribute, like your strength goes up by 1, or it might take it away. Your strength goes down by 1. Totally random. Or it could again summon a monster. Sitting in the throne could raise your level instantly. Boom, you're up a level. It could take away a level. It could teleport you to a random area of the dungeon, or it can summon a monster. Now, when these thrones summon a monster, it says in the screen, the Zombie King returns, or the Orc King returns, or the Demon King returns. And here comes this monster that's like 20, 30, 40 levels above the regular monsters that you'll find on a particular level. So like if you're on level 1 of the dungeon and you sit on one of these thrones and it summons the Zombie King, that guy might be level like 30 and you're just dead. You just have no choice. You're just dead. Now, one of my favorite encounters just a few weeks ago on my CBM here, I was prying the jewels off a throne and suddenly the Zombie King returns. He's like a level 29 zombie, and I'm deep into the game. So here I'm visualizing this decaying zombie king with this old decaying broken crown and these decaying robes coming back, summoned up from the depths of wherever he was from to take revenge on whoever's trying to steal his jewels. Well, instead, the game's random generator kicks in. The Zombie King returns, level 29 zombie. The zombie makes a quick move, steals your plus 14 armor. WTF. So this ancient king of times of yore crawls back out of his crypt to take revenge, takes a look at me, steals my armor, and then runs off skipping and laughing. I mean, my guy was sitting there like, what the bleep just happened here? It really was hilarious. So what got me back into Telengard is after I got my PET CBM 8032 and saw that Telengard was available for it, some friends on Twitter helped me locate a copy of it. As you saw on the PET, the graphics are PET-ski, the graphics are simple, but it's not all about the graphics. It never has been all about the graphics. And I had an absolute blast on it. It's just such a great way to get engrossed and spend a couple of hours goofing around without having to think too much. Just go in there and, okay, how am I going to get down one more level? How am I going to raise myself up to level 21? I need another 1,000,000 experience points to do that. And I started thinking about the fact that this game was written in BASIC. Just BASIC, that's it. And there's nothing too complicated about it. It's mostly just PET-ski characters and a lot of random generation. And so in theory, I was thinking, there's no particular reason it couldn't be modified to work on a Commodore VIC-20, an expanded VIC-20, but in theory, there should be a way to make it pretty much work. There would have to be major compromises because the VIC screen is only 22 characters and the C64 and the PETs tend to be 40 characters, so there'd be major compromises, but nothing that couldn't be overcome. So I started thinking about it for about 10 minutes, thinking, how could I do this? What would I have to change? How would I have to rearrange things in BASIC? And I thought, why not just check and see if somebody else has already done this? I'd never looked before. So got on good old-fashioned Google, took a look, literally one reference in Google to it that I could find. and it was a link to a Lemon 64 post from a guy named Neo-Rio, who says, hey, there's a new version of Telengard for the VIC-20. Take a look at it over on the Denial forums. Now, for those of you who don't know, Denial is a fantastic VIC-20 centric forum. Probably the best forum just about the VIC-20 out there. I'll put a link to it here and in the description. So I checked out the post on Denial, and sure enough, in April 12th of 2016, this guy, Neo-Rio, redid the PET version of Telengard to get it work on the VIC-20, and he said it was a big pain. It was really difficult to get everything done, and there are some changes that had to be made. So you're probably asking, there's no way this is going to work on a 3.5 kilobyte VIC-20, and it doesn't. You need at least 24 kilobytes of memory in order to run this game. And how would you get memory into your VIC-20? Well, with a penultimate cartridge from the future was 8-bit. You can see they're linked down there. Not only does this let you go from 0K to 35K of memory and anywhere in between, but it's got tons of games, tons of utilities, a reset button for your VIC-20. This is like the ultimate add-on for your VIC-20. I know you guys think I sound like a broken record talking about the future was 8-bit. I mean, I talk about them in literally every episode of the ChickenHead Chronicles. And sure, you know, take a look. Every now and again, when I order something from them, they'll toss in a coffee mug, they'll toss in an eraser, they'll toss in a pen or a mouse pad. But this in no way influences my opinions on their products. Everything is just 100% my opinion. Honest. So I downloaded the .64 image from Neo-Rio's link on the forums. I'll also have a link to that in the description going directly towards it. And I put it on my SD to IEC, which is this little beauty right here. And it was made by the future from 8-bit. Did I mention them? Oh, what's this? Oh, a check. I forgot to cash that one. Sorry about that, Rod. I'll cash this right away. I set my VIC-20 to 35K and booted it up. And let's take a look. And this is VIC-20 Telengard, 100% functional with 100% of all features intact. Because of the screen size, the dungeon map takes up the entire screen, and you will only see your stats and items during combat or when you go to use a spell or replot the screen. This adds a bit of a delay as it has to swap out screens, but to be honest, it has not bothered me a bit. All of the 50 levels of the dungeon are here. All of the monsters and even some of the enhanced graphics were put in. Instead of some PET-ski characters, it uses kind of a hybrid of PET-ski and some of the graphics from the Atari version. Looks pretty nice, really. To save precious RAM, as the 27K available to BASIC on the VIC-20 when it's fully expanded is a little less than the 31K available on the PET, some of the text for interactions have been shortened, and you'll see that on the screen here where it maybe shaves it down a little bit. Number one, so it fits in the screen. Number two, so it saves a few bytes of memory. And as you know, on a VIC-20, every byte counts sometimes. He was also able to add a little bit of audio, that being the gong that sounds when you die. All in all, when everything's said and done, there's about 1 kilobyte of memory free after the game loads in. This is an excellent port of the game, and once you get into it, you quickly forget the differences between the versions and go on your merry way slaughtering trolls and vampires and hunting down a nice sword plus 74 and hoping the Zombie King does not steal it from you. Telengard for the VIC-20 is a must download, not just for Telengard and RPG fans, but for anyone looking for something fun to do with our great little machine. Neo-Rio did a fantastic job on this port, and I recommend creating an account on Denial and thanking him on the post that I have linked in the description. He did great work here and stayed true to the spirit of Telengard for sure. So get this game. Get this game for whatever platform you have, VIC-20, Commodore 64, PET, Atari, Apple II. It's a fun game, and you really will sink hours into it once you figure it out and kind of get the gist of it. I would like to thank my wonderful patrons with this wonderful VIC-20 presentation. You can join too for as little as $2 per month at patreon.com/10mark. Thank you guys all so much. I really appreciate it. And it's really hard to fit everybody's name onto a VIC-20 screen at the same time. So please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Let me know what your favorite 8-bit dungeon crawler is, what your favorite roguelike is on the 8-bit machines, because I'd love to try other ones. But try Telengard out, or tell me about your Telengard adventures and what you've done in the game and what you remembered that kind of made you smile. But until next time, this is Doug from 10-Minute Amiga Retrocast, signing out to go try and pry some jewels off a throne.